Hello. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome to the stage director Brandon Vedder and, of course, David Bazan. Really been working on it for a while, long time in the making. But what first got you started in the project? Like, how did you guys connect?
Yeah, it's been 4 years. We've been making it for 4 years, which is crazy to think about today. I think the first kind of inkling of it was I was finishing editing on the last film, and I had a shoot in Mexico and just downloaded a bunch of podcasts. One of them was Pete Holmes interviewing Dave for his Let's Make It Weird podcast, and crispy, something like that. Yeah. So, the way that Dave talked about his faith and his experience, I'd never heard anyone quite articulate in that way, and it just seemed really helpful to me. And so I went home and actually, kind of in a really nerdy way, like printed out every single one of his lyrics from his very first song to the most current song, and kind of bound a little book to read it all in one sitting to see what that did. And it became really clear very quickly once I kind of finished reading it as a narrative that this was what I was going to spend the next 4 years doing.
Chronologically, you mean you read the whole thing from?
Yeah.
Any plans to publish this book?
I'm glad you did that, though. That's cool.
I want to open this up to the audience. Does anyone have any questions? And if you want to ask some questions, there's some mics right here and here, so feel free to just step up when you're ready. Yeah, let's do this.
Hi, thank you so much. It was a beautiful film. I've been listening to your music for a long time, and just thank you so much. I'm a pastor, and it's great to. I appreciate your honesty and vulnerability. I wanted to ask a stylistic question though. The consistent button of the drone shots, which are beautiful by the way.
Yeah.
It seemed to be, which at the end the dialogue sort of gets there. This opening to the possibility of transcendence. A question mark, really, not an exclamation mark. I wondered if that was purposeful or not.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it always, it doubled as stylistically just a great way to experience the space that Dave was in, and the whole idea was kind of very, very close and very far. But there is a kind of a God's eye, universe eye view thing to it as well. So yeah, it was. When we first started doing that, it became very quickly kind of a big piece of the language.
Thanks so much.
Let's go here.
So great film, and thanks for all your music through the years, and it was a perfect sort of, I guess, visual representation of his entire discography on some level. But I had a question for each of you, if I could. I was wondering, David, if you have ever thought about maybe writing a novel or something and going that route, which would allow you to stay home more often.
I have. I think what I've found is that there's a regular kind of connection that you get with an audience with playing music. I could be very focused and write a 5-minute song and have a lot of detail in it, but when I tried to do longer works that there was more time without that kind of feedback, my system couldn't really handle it. So I've grown and have seen some changes that I feel differently about that now, so I might be old enough to attempt something like that now, but before I couldn't hack it.
And then I was just wondering, technical question for you, those amazing overhead shots where it didn't look, and they were stationary, and it didn't look like there was anywhere you could have possibly perched. Was that just, do you mind sharing your secret to some of those shots?
Yeah, it was just throwing a drone up in the sky, and which was kind of because drones had been becoming so popular. There is like a lot of ways that had gotten really tired in terms of using these flying cameras, and we kind of approached it more like a tripod wherever we wanted in the world. So yeah, not a ton of moving shots, but just like this perspective that you ever really get. And then so wide that there's enough kind of information on the screen to sit in it and to kind of be there.
Wonderful.
Yes, go ahead.
Question for David. The moment in the film where you're in Seattle and the kid in the audience asks you, how important is Jesus to you? Was that at the Paradox?
That was at the Showbox, I believe, Showbox Market.
I think that was me.
Oh, right.
Nice to see you.
We can have a private conversation. I did actually have a question.
That wasn't
Just each of you, what's your goal for this movie? What's the measure of success?
You go first. Your idea.
I want as many people to see it as possible. I want it to.
I was afraid you were going to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, I think that there's a really important dialogue that is sparked in the film in a way that isn't prescriptive, and I think that it's a conversation that we need to have right now. And yeah, I think the Dave's spirit in asking it and engaging in it, one of the biggest things in terms of how I approached it was I learned very quickly from the way that Dave handled his house shows and these people where sometimes there was some weird energy coming at him, and there is, just the inclusivity that and the real interest in hearing from people. I think that really drove the film, and so I'd love for the film to be seen in also kind of weird settings like house shows, and we have some really interesting plans of how to do this differently, because it's so hard to get people in movie theaters, and the digital space watching at home can be isolating, and so yeah, we're trying to figure it out. So
Yeah, and for me, I don't know. I mean, I think I saw this movie called Here's What Is. It's a movie about Daniel Lanois several years ago, and in it, Daniel Lanois and Brian Eno are having a conversation. They have several conversations over the course of the film, but this one in particular, Brian Eno is telling Daniel Lanois, just show people the tools, that we're not special. Anybody can do this, but somebody showed us the tools and showed us what was possible, basically. And so for me, with house shows and that, you can see the texture of it here, I think. And so if an artist had the desire to do this, they could see a way to do it. And also, I just think our feelings and our natural responses to people and systems that we come in contact with and are forced to interact with every day are extremely valid and don't usually get space to be expressed. And so, by me expressing my feelings in such detail, I don't know, it's not I don't know. I'm trying to justify this to myself. But to the degree that my struggle and my process could be helpful to somebody to even just spark the desire to think through a problem that they're having differently or whatever. But yeah, for somebody to see my process and struggle in this kind of detail, hopefully could be helpful to people.
Yep, yeah.
Perfect. So my question is right on that line. I think being a human being that's, unpacking themselves while watching you unpack yourself on a film, and kind of being to the point where I'm decently recognizing in, some Bazan vernacular what I'm half-massed about on kind of my deep-seated beliefs. Do you have a short list, some self-assigned equations, some solid calculations that would have been you would have been discerningly thankful to hear when you were, 29 years old?
Well, yeah, I think that when I had feelings as a young kid that there wasn't space for in my family or in the culture that I was in, I stuffed those feelings or just didn't have a place for them, didn't take them seriously, didn't dwell on them, wasn't supposed to, all this. And I started getting into debt with myself, little by little, to where when I was a man, I was massively in debt to my feelings, basically. And I couldn't stop. And the more that I hurt, the more that I unwittingly was hurting the people around me. And so I eventually had to figure out how to square that debt and figure out what kind of relationship I needed to have with myself and how to prioritize that over the people's needs around me in a lot of cases, because we need to reconfigure stuff. I was a codependent mess, So everybody's got a different stripe of difficulty, but the key to me finding balance was in my loneliness. I didn't realize I had a friend in myself and somebody who got me. I just wished I could be gotten by somebody for real, and then I had this. I got myself, and I just didn't have any value for that or any way to show value. So myself supplied some projects for me to work on, and I have fulfilled one of those projects, and myself is very glad and trusts me a lot more. And so, yeah, I wish somebody would have told me that it was me. I needed to get cool with myself, and God can come later. All that, just don't, other romantic stuff can come later. That has to happen, so that's, and you see me kind of learning that almost all the way in this movie. But I learned a lot since we've been done, and I'm really grateful for this. And
I'm grateful for it.
Hell yeah.
We just have time for one more question, so let's go over this side.
Thank you for a wonderful, beautiful, and honest, really unique film. And this is a bit of a filmmaking question, but it goes to the honesty of it. As it seems from the audience perspective, so unmediated and unfiltered, and we don't see the cameraman or the editor or the director, and we're in the car or the room with them. And
Nice one.
yeah. I don't recall ever seeing one that was done that well. How conscious was that, and was that what you were going for? Was tremendous intimacy between the audience and David.
Thank you. That's honestly one of the best compliments that I could have for this film. It was, we were just joking, and we ended up in this configuration again, but we watched Dave's in the driver's seat, and we spent so much time together with him in the driver's seat and me in the passenger seat, traveling through the country, and we both sat upstairs alone watching it together, and we just kind of went to this configuration. And then we got out here on stage, and I realized we were in the same configuration.
I like it over here, man.
So, one of the first things that I kind of realized I wanted to do with the film in terms of the presentation of it was to not have any sit-down interviews, to not have Dave have to kind of address the camera. And so speaking of the car situation, which is just the worst place to shoot ever, it's the worst decision, like having to, do sound and film in a car and, put up tint every time and, but it gave us this time where we were in the car for 5 or 6 hours at a time, and I tried to not really ask him questions either, so he wouldn't be answering in a tense of, in that tense. And so the idea was for it to be coming out of his head, and this homeostasis of driving, you know, that he's this most comfortable in almost. We get to come into there as well, and we get those thoughts as well, and a lot of the music, you know, are kind of the cues of when we're going inside and outside of his head. Yeah, but we became really good friends in the process, and I think that Dave was incredibly generous with himself, and that, you know, that it doesn't go anywhere without that.
Well, I'm really sorry to say we have to wrap it up there, but I just want to say it's so great to see you on the screen, this amazing room, and I'm really glad you're both here with the film. So thanks so much, Brandon, David.
We have a bunch of people that have helped make this film in the room, and I just wanted to ask everyone that was a part of this thing to stand up, and I'd like to celebrate everyone that's been a part of this thing.